Most developers install the Salesforce Extension Pack, click through the defaults, and never touch it again. That's fine until something stops working and there's no mental model of what's actually installed or how it fits together. This is the full setup, properly. Salesforce Extension Pack isn't one extension. It's a bundle of 6, installed together from the VS Code marketplace. Salesforce CLI integration is the core, everything else depends on it. Apex gives you IntelliSense and go-to definition. Apex Replay Debugger lets you step through logs. Visual Force and Lightning Web Components cover the older and newer UI layers. And SOQL gives you a visual query builder. Before any of that does anything useful, 2 things need to be true. The Salesforce CLI needs to be installed. That's a one-line npm install. And your project folder needs an sfdx file sitting at the root. Keep VS Code itself updated too. Old versions can silently fail to activate extensions properly. Here's the minimal version of that file. Package directories pointing at your source folder and a source API version. If you cloned an existing Salesforce DX project, this file is already there. If you're starting fresh, generate one or write it by hand. It's this short. Installing the pack itself is the easy part. Open the Extensions panel with Command or Control-Shift-X, search for Salesforce Extension Pack, confirm the publisher is Salesforce, and install. All 6 extensions activate together. Reload the window if it asks you to. Worth understanding why this file matters so much. Without sfdx.json at the root, VS Code doesn't recognize the folder as a Salesforce project at all. No Apex IntelliSense, ever. The org browser icon does nothing. Deploy on safe silently does nothing. If you're starting from scratch, generate one with SF Project Generate. You never have to leave the editor to connect to an org. Open the command palette, Command-Shift-P on Mac, Control-Shift-P on Windows, and run sfdx. Authorize an org, choose production, sandbox, or a custom login URL, then give the connection an alias. That alias is what you'll reference in every command after this. If you'd rather do it from the terminal, here's the CLI equivalent. Sandbox authentication points at the test.salesforce.com instance URL. Production skips that flag entirely and defaults to the standard login endpoint. Either path, CLI or command palette, ends up in the same authenticated state. Once you're authorized, the alias shows up in the blue status bar at the bottom left of VS Code. That's always your current default org. Click it any time to switch between every org you've already authorized. Run sfdx. List all aliases if you've lost track of what's connected. This is where the Apex extension earns its place. It's powered by the actual Apex language server, not a static snippets file, so autocomplete knows your org's real fields, both standard and custom. Method signatures show up for standard and custom Apex classes. Press F12 on any reference, and it jumps straight to the definition. Red squiggles catch syntax errors before you ever attempt to deploy. Here's a small Apex class to make that concrete. Autocomplete on opportunity fields, the with security_enforced clause. All of it comes from the language server actually understanding your schema, not guessing. If a field or object you just created isn't showing up in autocomplete, don't panic. The metadata cache is just stale. Run sfdx. Refresh subject definitions from the command palette. Or, better, turn on the setting that does this automatically on startup. That's coming up shortly. The SOQL extension gives you a genuinely visual query builder. Run sfdx. Create query in SOQL Builder, pick objects and fields by clicking rather than typing syntax from memory, and run the query straight against your authorized org with an instant results preview. The org browser lives in the sidebar behind the cloud icon. Browse metadata types, objects, flows, Apex classes, permission sets, without touching the command line at all. Right-click anything to retrieve just that piece of source directly into your project. Genuinely useful when you need one component, not a full org retrieve. This is the most underused feature in the entire pack. The Apex Replay Debugger steps through a save debug log rather than requiring a live, running transaction. Right-click a line number and toggle a checkpoint. You get up to 5. Update your debug log levels, trigger the code path in your org, then pull the log with sfdx. Get Apex debug logs. Here's an example worth setting a checkpoint on, right on the line inside the loop where the running total actually accumulates. Once the checkpoint's set and the log is pulled, right-click it and launch the Apex Replay Debugger with the current file. Full variable inspection, exactly like a live debugger, except it works in production where live debugging usually isn't an option at all. A handful of settings.json tweaks change the daily experience more than people expect. Push or deploy on save auto-deploys to your default org the moment you hit save. Retrieve test code coverage highlights exactly which lines your tests actually covered. Enable subject refresh on startup means IntelliSense stays current without you remembering to refresh it manually. Here's what that actually looks like in settings.json. For lines, push or deploy on save, test coverage retrieval, subject refresh on startup, and turning off the CLI success message once you trust the workflow and don't need the notification every time. 6 extensions, 1 install. CLI integration, Apex Replay Debugger, Visualforce, Lightning Web Components, and SOQL, all wired together the moment sfdxproject.json exists and an org is authorized. That's the entire foundation most Salesforce development sits on. That's the full setup. Extension pack installed, sfdxproject.json in place, an org authorized, and a few settings.json tweaks, and VS Code stops being an editor with some Salesforce icons and starts being an actual development environment. Full written walkthrough at realsyllabus.com.